Yo, hey everybody, it's Sunday. And on Sundays, we review custom cards. And I'm fired up about this week's because there's some bangers and absolute fire creative ideas came out of this weekly challenge. And the last weekly challenge was no ability. So the card had to have the keyword no ability in its text. This upcoming challenge is going to be on reveal. It's a little bit more broad because I want to see a wide variety of crazy ideas, so get creative. But a quick note that I want to mention, I think there's a big stigma in Marvel Snap that the design space is very constricted because you only have 6 turns. Power levels aren't crazy numbers like in the thousands, so you can't do too much there. It's a common theme that I see commented on videos and thrown out on Reddit and whatnot. And I think this challenge really blows that out of the water because the amount of submissions, if you join the Berryverse Discord, you'll see there's so many submissions. You guys are absolutely crushing it. It's hard to pick only 5, but there's so many ideas out there. There's no way they're going to run out of ideas to make cards. So I just absolutely love it. And I want to just big thank you to everyone who submitted a card. If yours didn't get showcased here, I encourage you to keep posting cards every week. I'm going to try and mix it up, not use the same user every single time, but I also got to go for the really wild ones, really creative and somewhat balanced. So without further ado, let's get into the cards. Okay, really quickly, I have these 3 cards that are kind of honorable mentions. I'm going to always try to keep it to 5 plus my own, but I had to throw these in here for a few reasons. One, Mark was the first one to post a card about this. I think he even posted it beforehand, suggesting this theme. So I wanted to keep it here. And it's a really cool card. The artwork is awesome, Mark. And the ability is ongoing +2 power for every card with no ability that increased in power. I think the idea is that you play Patriot. It even has the same stat line. You buff like 3 or 4 cards, and then you get a big, massive swing in power on USA Agent. Very cool, very cool. And then Kai put out Captain Carter. Look at this card. The full art of this card, he even has his signature and everything, and like probably did it in Photoshop. Unbelievable, dude. You're crushing it. I absolutely love the art, the weight, the frame break, the backdrop. Oh, it's all so good. I had to feature him in the last video because he had an awesome artwork. I had to do it again here. My hands were forced. I had to do it. And the card itself is a 4/4 ongoing. Your cards at this location with no abilities have +3 power. And even said that this is kind of a play on Patriot plus Captain America, which is kind of her theme, right? She's got the shield like Captain America. Patriot giving the bonus to no ability cards, but this is locked at one location. It's really interesting to kind of merge those 2 cards together and then get Captain Carter. So that was a really cool idea. Very, very beautiful design. So you get like 5 stars, both of you, for that one. And then I also put the BitterFig's Legion here. Now, this is a bit of a cheat. I would have probably put it in the top 5, but I gave the extra constraint that the no ability tag needed to be in the text and that it not be a card that simply has no ability. But this card really stuck out to me because we have cards in Marvel Snap that don't have an ability from 0 to 6, which seems natural, right? You know, that's pretty much every step of energy in the game. But 7 actually works. I don't think you could do 8, 9. That'd get a little bit out of hand. You can't go negative energy. That doesn't make any sense. So why isn't there a 7? Because you can ramp into it. You can play Electro, Psylocke, Magic. There's all kinds of ways to eventually get Legion out. And that's not even talking about just cheating them out too, right? You have things like Jubilee, Lockjaw. There's a lot of ways to cheat cards out of your deck. So I think a 7 drop, no ability card with maybe 17, 18, 16. I don't know exactly what's balanced, but just that general concept of a 7 cost, no ability card, this should be in the game. This 100% would be fantastic in the game. And maybe, honestly, maybe even too strong. Maybe we have to lower the power a little closer to Hulk because you can cheat this out. It's like another tool for even hella discard decks. There's a lot of possibilities. We've seen them a lot, but it would be really cool to add. All right, and before we get into the top 5 winners, I have my card here, Purple Man. So I made Purple Man a 4 cost, 2 power, ongoing cards with no abilities, fight cards with abilities at their location. So there's maybe a bit going on here that might sound a bit confusing because the term fight isn't really a mechanic in Marvel Snap until the most recent new location, which was Warrior Falls, added this into the game, and there was a few learning curve with this location. But essentially the way that I see it is if I have a couple of no ability cards at a location, then my opponent has an ability card at that location, they're going to fight, and the lowest power total is going to be destroyed. And I can also use that to my benefit. Let's say I had Bucky Barnes. He has an ability. When he's destroyed, he summons a Winter Soldier. Well, then I could play like Shocker to destroy Bucky Barnes because they're both playing at the same location. Then I get that Winter Soldier out for free. I didn't want this to get too out of hand. Cards with no abilities tend to have higher power, so they probably will win a lot of fights. But I just wanted to find a way to put fights into the game. And I thought it'd be really cool because Purple Man does a lot of mind control things. And then this is kind of like mind controlling your opponent's stuff to fight you and you to fight them. And yeah, I thought it would be a really cool way. You also pair this with Patriot to give them even more power so they start winning those fights more consistently. Honestly, it might be a little bit broken. It might be a bit too much and frustrating for people because they didn't bring high power cards to the table. You like Iron Man, you try to set up Iron Man, you try to set up a Wong, but your opponent plays a no ability card that has decent power, and then bam, it gets destroyed. Like now we're talking about any card can pretty much get destroyed. So maybe it's a little too crazy. Maybe it should only be at Purple Man's location, and then you have to find a way to buff him so that he's not the one getting destroyed. That could be a possibility. Probably a little bit nuts. Does have some counters in that he has low power for a high cost, and he's ongoing tag, so Enchantress, Rogue, these kind of things can steal it from him. But yeah, let me know what you think about Purple Man. All right, and now for the top 5. Now, I don't have these in any particular order. It's not like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 situation here. They're just the top 5 that really stood out to me, and I wanted to put them in the video. And this one is submitted by KidHave. It is High Evolutionary, 5 cost, 5 power. On reveal, return your cards with no abilities to your hand. Give each +3 power. Yes, love it. More bounce, but benefiting no ability cards. So you want to play those really cheap things, like we're talking Wasp, Misty Knight, even Squirrels, right? You can spawn Squirrels with Squirrel Girl, Mr. Sinister's clone, Broodlings. Well, this kind of makes it so that those cards that you're bouncing back to your hand, they're going to have a big power swing on the next turn. And it's basically kind of like Sarah. That's what it reminds me of, a 5 cost, 5 power. Set up that big turn 6 swing. That's really what you're doing here. So you can set that up with Collector. He's going to get +1 for each card that you threw back to your hand. Angela, you probably were already stacking on her, and now you get to do it again with even more power. I think this would get out of hand. This would make Bounce Bros a legitimate deck. And really, you only need to bounce like 2 or 3 cards to get value from this card. Now, you don't have a mana cheat, so you got to kind of figure out your turn 6, what's going to be the most efficient play. But like we're talking like 4 power Wasps, 5 power Misty Knights, 4 power Squirrels, all these things coming out really quickly on turn 6. And if you have Bishop and all that, it's going to be pretty insane. Fantastic design, KidHave. Love the art. Thematically very cool, and a very creative way to incorporate no ability cards. Next up, we have Hardcore's Gray Gargoyle. On reveal, turn all your other cards here into statues with no ability. They keep their original power and cost. I really like this card, especially because it reminds me of Mr. Negative, how you can change the art style of the cards that are in your deck, or in this particular scenario, it's the cards at that location. They become stoned. So I can imagine like the color of the card would change. That's why I have these on the right-hand side here, kind of in that grayish stone-like vibe. A little bit, maybe a little bit too close to Mr. Negative. I'm sure Team Second Dinner could do a better art style than I'm doing here. But the idea is really cool. And then also it's another way to make Zero decks a little bit better, right? Because it's relying so heavily on Zero. Now you have Gray Gargoyle to get rid of those terrible ongoing effects, like from Typhoid Mary. Even Ebony Maw, if you play this on the same turn as Ebony Maw on turn 3, then you would remove his ability and you could still play cards there afterwards. So I like that it only costs 2 to enable that combo. And then Lizard, so that, you know, if your opponent starts stacking cards there to ruin Lizard's power, well, guess what? You turn him into a statue and it's not going to be a problem. You don't have to worry about that negative ongoing ability. Even Red Skull as well, but that might be a little bit too late. But usually people are banking on that bonus power from Red Skull. So if they're kind of thinking, okay, well, with that bonus 2, 4, 6 power, I'll be okay. And then on turn 6, you get rid of it. Ooh, maybe that's a big swing and big enough to shut them down. I do feel when I play a Zero deck that it's just missing that extra piece to get rid of these abilities. And I think this is a very creative way to do it. Yeah, I just love this one when I first saw it. It just made perfect sense to me. It's a nice add on to no ability cards, because then maybe I even run Patriot in my 0 decks to play it after I do all the removing of abilities, right? And then they start getting those buffs. It's kind of a hybrid. Very, very, very cool. Thank you. All right, it's Tarn time, because Tarn is a 3-cost, 5 power. On reveal, discard a card. Give a card with no ability at this location that card's ability. This is Persona Trash's card. Very, very cool. Probably broken. When I first saw this, I was like, okay, that's fine. You know, the discarded card. Okay, we have Swordmaster, and that's more power than this. So, okay, not so great. Give a card with no ability at this location that card's ability. That can get absolutely out of hand, because you pair it with Wasp, who doesn't cost anything. So you play this. You play Wasp first, then you play Tarn. And Tarn discards something from your hand that has high value. I'm talking like Professor X as an insane combo, because probably the 6 power that you just put out is going to win that location, and then you lock it down. Boom. Turn 3, 1 a lane. Like, yeah, that's probably a little bit much. Or Iron Man. What if you get Iron Man? You're set up pretty much to win the lane after that, because now you just played 12 power on turn 3. Like, it just gets wild. And these are just a few combos that I thought of off the top of my head. Like, I'm sure the community would be able to find some broken combinations with this card. Not to mention his premium stats. I think honestly we could make it not premium. We can almost give him a bit of a lesser, like a 3-2 or 3-1 or something, because this would find a way. Now, there is variance. You're discarding a card, and if you're doing it that early, like I'm proposing, then you probably don't have a lot of say in what card gets discarded. But I think you start running like some ongoing decks with Onslaught, Iron Man, Professor, like these kinds of things, and then you just tech in Wasp Tarn combo as just a 2-card combo, then it just gets wild. It just gets wild, and it could be thrown into all kinds of decks. Probably usually ongoing decks, but I imagine on reveals would still trigger once this card, like if the Wasp adopted an on reveal trigger, it would trigger it automatically. I don't know. That's how I envision it, but very cool. Looks great. Maybe a little bit broken, but I like it. It's stretching the boundaries of Marvel Snap and what we can have and we can't have. Or maybe I'm overthinking it. I might be overthinking it too. It just seems a little bit nuts to me, but very cool. Thank you. I love this card. I've been wanting something that synergizes with rocks for a very long time. And here we have MegaTacos Mole Man. I've seen Mole Man suggested a lot using this exact art, which is very cool. But this one stood out to me because he's a 2-cost 0 power. Ongoing, when a card with no ability enters either player's hand, give this card +2 power. Okay, very simple. It's very reminiscent of Morbius for discard, right? Anytime a card is discarded from your hand, he gets +2 power. It's ongoing effect, right? So this is like the Morbius for no ability card. But it's not just no abilities now, is it? It's pretty much rocks. Because what are you putting in your opponent's deck? What are you putting in your deck if Subterranea pops up, right? He's even said the king of Subterranea himself, Mole Man. So it's like all of a sudden that location, that terrible, terrible location is like cash money for your deck, because hopefully you planned around it, and now Mole Man's getting buffed like crazy, so long as you drew him early enough and could play him. But I like the idea of putting rocks into your opponent's deck and knowing when they drop the rocks. It's so frustrating if you can play Korg and Rock Slide. That's all great and all, but what if they're not drawing those rocks? You did nothing that game. And maybe it'll work every now and then, but it would be really cool to actually know, oh, Mole Man just grew in 2 power. He drew a rock. Oh, and then he drew another rock. Oh, it's turn 6 and Mole Man got +2 power. He just drew a rock. He's screwed. Snap. Like, there's just that little underlying ability within this card that just makes it so cool, so much fun to play. And all of a sudden, maybe we start seeing a lot more Korg. I don't know about Rock Slide. He's still a bit weak, but we could start seeing a lot of Korg because he's a pretty solid card. And then another one that I thought of that would give the +2 at least is the Hood. You play the Hood, you get a no ability card to your hand. That's +2 for Mole Man, and you get a demon. So that's happy days. Yeah, I just love this one so much. Very, very creative way to make rocks viable. No ability cards that are drawn from your deck as strategy. Very cool. Thank you for the submission. All right, last but not least, I like to leave the craziest one for last, and we got Reds Baron Zemo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, because so many people have submitted cards with this character, and I'm not overly familiar with him, But he is, in this scenario, a 6 cost, 6 power. Ongoing, your cards with no abilities have this card's power. Yo, this is crazy. This is so wild. All of a sudden, your rocks have 6 power. Your squirrels have 6 power. Wasp becomes a 0 cost, 6 power card. It's just that big setup for Baron, and then bam. It's Patriot on steroids. It's absolutely insane. And to top it all off, guys, it's not even just 6. It can be more than that. You can play Forge to give him another +2, and then it's 8 across the board to all your no ability cards. Now, of course, we're talking about things like Monster, who's already 9 and then becomes actually less. He gets hurt. You don't want to play Hulk. You don't want to play A-Bomb. So there's cards that don't get run in this. You just play all the cheap stuff, which works out really nicely because Baron is a 6-drop. So you don't really want to have all those like bigger guys later for the end. Why not just buff all these little ones that I can play during my early turns and then drop Baron and boom, get these crazy buffs. Yeah, I think Forge makes him insane. You could even run Nakia and Okoye for even more buffs to get these cards even higher power totals. Truthfully, I think this might be broken, but it's very cool to have a 6-drop in the game that benefits no ability cards. Because right now the only one is Hulk. And it's not really a beneficiary of that effect. It's just a no ability card with a lot of power. And the reason I brought up this challenge is kind of built into this card is that I find there's just not enough cards in Marvel Snap that give benefit to no ability cards. We have to find more ways. There should be a 6-drop like Baron here that is probably pretty nuts, but helps buff these other cards. Something to note too is this doesn't even work with Patriot. It's one or the other. The way I see it is that Baron's ability would override Patriot's. I don't imagine they could kind of have the same because his cards are your cards have this power, right? So it's a fine line, and then Patriot's giving +2. I don't know. That's maybe up for debate. Because maybe it's just a bonus 2, it's 6, then +2. Maybe, I don't know. We wouldn't know until we saw it in the game. But regardless, I think there needs to be more support for no ability cards, a 6-drop like Baron, and I thought this one was really cool. To balance him, you know, maybe if we didn't want to make him totally bonkers, you just lower his power. With a card like this, every step of the way, 5 to 4 to 3, is a huge impact on that archetype of deck. So I think it's really easy to balance to maybe drop him to 4. That might be a little bit more reasonable. Now we're talking Wasp, Squirrels, Clones, Broodlings, like all these things will still get bonus power. And maybe that's not even enough. Then maybe you have to buff him to actually make that deck take the next step and become meta. So just super cool. I love this concept. Maybe not there balance-wise, but very cool. Thank you, Red. And that's going to do it for this week's submissions. Thank you so much for submitting a bunch of cards in the Berryverse Discord. It's been awesome seeing everybody collaborate, commenting on each other's cards. The submissions are through the roof. It takes so long to go through them all, but at least it's enjoyable because I love this game and I love seeing creative ideas. I hope that Team Second Dinner sees this stuff because you guys are like just absolutely killing it. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Join the Berryverse Discord, make a card on reveal and put it in there and maybe I'll showcase it in the next video. But I will catch you guys next time.